in Cincinnati, Ohio. I was there for the first 25 years of my life before I moved here to Louisville. I had my first daughter when I was 15 years old. But here's something that I haven't told my kids. My kids last May for Mother's Day got me this necklace. It had been hard to find something to put all six of my kids on. And all of my daughters have 7 letters in their first name like mine. So it's been challenging, but they found this. And so when they gave it to me on Mother's Day, it reminded me of when is that something? So it reminded me of the hole right here on the side. Now I know that hole is there because on this side because the way they designed the heart. But when my daughter gave it to me, I said, wow, it reminded me that when I was 14, I lost a baby. And I don't talk about that with the kids. I was in and out of foster care. We were trying to figure out things. And when I became pregnant, I had just forced myself out to have sex because I had been raped by my stepfather. He had went to prison. And I just didn't understand my sexuality. I didn't understand what I was getting out of it. And I just did it because I wanted to make a decision for myself. My innocence had already been taken by the time I got pregnant. It was already taken before I decided to have sex. And so I had to learn a lot in a short amount of time. And so when my body started reacting and acting different and I read books, I realized that I had a miscarriage. So it's the 6 kids on this necklace, but there's that hole for the one that I don't get to talk about. So I thought about that when I was driving here. We fast forward. I'm living with my father. I get pregnant with my daughter at 15, and my life changed. I mean, back then they didn't have teenage pregnancy, high schools, and things like that. You basically had to walk around and grow and do all those things with the letter on your forehead and everybody talking to you crazy and basically counting you out for life and all the things. And so I just decided that I know I was a teenage parent and I was trying to be different from my mother. I come from teenage parents. My mother was 19 when she had me. My father was 18. And he was in and out of jail. And my mom just did what she needed to do. So I was the second of my mother's children. So she had 2 in her teens. I ended up having 2 in my teens as well. But I will tell you, looking at my daughter when I gave birth, I didn't find out what my daughter was. I just accepted that this was my new fate. I decided that I wanted to live because before I didn't want to live. And I know it's hard. People have babies under different conditions or different understanding of life. But I knew for me, she gave me a reason to do something different, a reason to have some hope. I was an emancipated teen. At 16, I was already working. I didn't get any benefits. Whatever benefits got, my mother used to help my sister. So I worked and went to school. And I've done that since 1995. I've always worked, went to school, ran a business. I knew that anything that I wanted to have, I had to create. I had examples of how not to do it, and I had little examples of how to be better. So I had to figure out life while trying to be a mother at the same time, while trying to date, while trying to understand my sexuality, while trying to figure out what's next for me. I now, if you look on my Facebook, I'm friends with people from junior high, high school. Someone found me when I went to school in Alabama. I lived in Alabama for a few years when my mother had to have surgery there. So you know that when you're in life and you're going through it, you're still having an impact on another life. So there's people who are friends with me at every stage of my life. And when I look at social media, it reminds me, going to those 17 schools and those 4 colleges, it meant that I met a lot of people on this life journey. And it's important to know that everybody you meet is a reason, season, a lifetime, like we talked about earlier. So I was always a nerd. People don't notice about me, but I took all my books to school. That's when you could take all of your books to school and home. I just always was focused on school. School was my escape. A lot of times school was where we got our consistent meals from. If we didn't go to school, sometimes we wouldn't have lunch or we wouldn't have breakfast. So even if I had to pull out my mother's shirt and a belt, I made sure I went to school and dragged my little brother along with me. I knew school was important. I knew school was a way out. I knew education was a way to something different because that's what I read about. That's what I saw. And we didn't grow up in church, but we went to church here and there. I saw the neighbors going to church. I asked them to go to church with them. And so I grew in my faith. But school was one of the most consistent things. My education was the most consistent thing in my life. And it was a public school education that I valued. But then I became a non-traditional student because I had a baby. I wanted to go to different colleges, but my choices were limited. So I went to the University of Cincinnati. But before I went to college, I was engaged to be married at 18. He was the son of a sheriff. One night we got into it because he wanted to make another baby, and I was like, we have to wait and let nature do its thing. And so that argument turned into a physical fight. I picked up a weapon. Back then I was 100 pounds lighter than what I am now. Still the same height because I'm still short. But he was 6'4", 250 pounds, almost 300 pounds. And so I felt like I was going to lose my life if I didn't fight back. And I picked up a weapon. Well, once I picked up that weapon, that changed. I couldn't plea self-defense. So I was charged with a felony. I sat in jail 38 days on a $10,000 bond, at 10%, $1,000 that I couldn't afford, my family couldn't afford. And it really makes you think when you're sitting in jail. I did the same old prayers everybody do. God, get me out of this. I'll never be back. God, I'm doing this. And then he came to court. He told the judge, I did all these things to her. I provoked her. Back then, we actually had corded phones. He ripped the phone out of the wall. He told the judge all these things. The judge never looked at me. He looked at him in his suit, and I'm in an orange jumpsuit with handcuffs, and said, I don't care what you did. There's no reason for what she did. And it was never about me. It was always about him. He got charged with domestic violence, and I ended up with an assault charge because I took an aggravated assault charge because I needed to get out of jail. So that's what people do every day. They take a plea deal even if they don't feel like they're guilty, because then you know when you're getting out. If not, you have to wait through the court process, and that can take, it had already taken 38 days. I was due to start college in a couple months, and I just wanted to get out to my daughter, so I took that deal. I haven't been back since. Well, I did get arrested during the Justice for Breonna Taylor movement on some bogus charges, but it tells you that wasn't the end of my life story. That daughter is now 29 years old. She was 3 then, 29 years old now, and she has 2 kids of her own. And so I look at her, and knowing that I had her at 15, and now that she's almost 30, she's grown up with me. She's seen me at my best. She's seen me at my worst. She's experienced every relationship I experienced, every friendship I experienced, and whether it was a bad one with a girlfriend or a bad one with a guy friend. She saw all of those things growing up, and now I get to advise her and watch and just tell her what my experiences was, so she can make better choices. And it's hard, right? Because you see a lot as a parent, but also somebody that's been with you for all this time. They know you in ways nobody else would ever know you. And so now 6 kids later, 4 daughters. They're 29, 25, 23. One is 19, and my sons are 12 and 13. I am a different mom. I had 2 of my teens, 2 of my 30s, and two of my teens, 2 of my 20s, and 2 of my 30s. You're not the same woman that you are at 15 as you are at 25. So fast forward, I moved here in the early 2000s. I was pregnant with my 4th daughter. I had a whole plan. I was going to Florida, but Louisville was my test site. Louisville was like, okay, if I can come here, it's 100 miles down the road. I make it, I go. I don't make it, I can go back, But I stayed. I fell in love with Louisville, and I'm still in love with Louisville. It's been a roller coaster, even being homeless, even going through all the challenges I went through. There's hope here. There's passion here. There's progressiveness here. But there's a lot of people in the way. And so I had to navigate those same things, getting social services, getting your car, getting your apartment, getting your housing together, putting your kids in school, being homeless and having to find my kids a good school to go to. All of those things are what people are dealing with every day. And so then with my work, because I am directly impacted by incarceration on every level. My brother just got out from doing 10 years in 2020. And then my dad, like I said, he died in 2015. But he has spent 40 of his 56 years in and out of jail. So for me, all my work has been about dismantling poverty, of course, fighting racist practices and fighting the institutional racism. But I felt like in my lifetime, in these 40 something years, what can I do that's tangible? I feel like poverty is something that we can attack together. Poverty is something where we can meet. Growing up, I signed up for every program I could get here in Louisville and before I came to Louisville. And there wasn't a lot of groups like this, like what you're doing, being able to share best practices, what it's like to be a mom and go through things. You need that because sometimes you do have your family, but they're stuck in their ways of doing things, so they don't understand when you want to try something new. You might want to try a new diet for your kids. You might want to not put certain things in your child's hair or their diet, and they don't understand that. And so you have to make a lot of choices on your own. And when you're a black mom, and I'm a little lighter skinned, so I understand the colorism because my sister's darker than me. And I watched how people played us against each other, and it made her feel really mad at me and envious at times that, you know, she ended up hooking up with my boyfriends, right? Because she was just trying to figure out why it was a difference in me and her. It wasn't none that I gave. I worshipped her. I think she was beautiful, but I saw when we would be on school buses and we would be out how people talked to her, how they treated her, and it made me want to get closer to her. But it made her push me away. And she started to just wanting to be around her friends because she felt like they identified. And so for a long time, I felt alone. I met my best friend. Her name is Quita, and she lives in Columbus, Ohio. I saw her, and I did like some goofy stuff. I was like, will you be my best friend? Like, I'm tired of meeting all these people. And I just want to have a friend that I can count on because a lot of my hurt and pain was coming from other black women. And like I said, what happened with my stepfather. And so that I wanted to have that relationship. Yes, I had relationships across lines of difference, but it was important to me to work on my relationships with black women the most. And I still do that to this day. And it's hard. It's hard with us. And I continue to do that in a professional sense, in a community way, and in a family way. And it's a lot to work through. And I understand what society has done to us, but it's playing out at our work, it's playing out in our faith, it's playing out in our community. And I didn't want that for my daughters. It was so bad that I prayed to God and said, let all my daughters be around the same color. I don't want them to go through that, right? And I've explained this to my daughters, and now they're telling me the things that they see, and the body types, all the things that we go through, So it took a long time for me to recognize that I thought I had daddy issues, but I also had mama issues. I was at different points mad at my mom for some of the choices she made. And then I became a mother with a blended family, married my husband. We've been married 15 years. Last month was 15 years, And it's been, now I have 2 sons. I'm in new territory. I want to do everything. I want to learn from them, and I want to be the best mother I can be because a lot of the black men that I dealt with wanted the same things from their parents. They wanted a good relationship with their mom and a good relationship with their father. So that takes time, and it takes you making your children a priority. I wouldn't be here if I didn't make my children a priority. I will tell you all that. There was times where I didn't want to live, but my children gave me hope, And I know that's not the case for everybody, but you have to find something in this life to hold on to so that you can keep going. For some people, it's their faith. Some people, it's their education or their job. For me, it's those 6 kids and now 3 grandkids. And so I have a heart condition. I'm on my 3rd pacemaker. Those adverse childhood experiences and all the things we talked about, that bleeds over into our genetics, And my father, his mother, his mother's mother, all of them had the same heart condition. It was triggered right here in Louisville when I worked right down the road at 3208 West Broadway at the Braden Center. It was right before the smoking ordinance. I was going in every day as the only one who doesn't smoke, and I was around so much secondhand smoke that it triggered my heart condition. And I was due to graduate from Jefferson Community College, and I literally got out from the hospital from getting I had my heart failed, got out of that hospital and went back to school the week after. And they said, I can't believe you back here at school. Most people have a car accident and never finish the semester. I said, I can't do this. I've been on this road a long time, and I need to reach some type of educational plateau so I know what I'm doing and moving forward. So I left JCC, went to U of L. Ann Braden was one of my teachers. I was already doing my practicum at the Kentucky Alliance Against Racism and Political Repression. And then that's when I decided I didn't want to do Band-Aid social work. I wanted to do advocacy work. I wanted to work on changing our politics so that we can have better representation, better leadership to make bold decisions for people like us. Because we're not at the decision-making table. And sometimes when one of us is, we're not creating spaces for more of us to come. So I know that I'm that kind of black person that if I get through a door, we all getting through that door. I saw that not happening around our city. I saw so many people taking care of their own and looking out for themselves and their children, or maybe their friends' children, but the rest of us are left struggling. So for me, it's been about using my experiences, all the past, all the things I've been through, and my motherhood to guide me, and not being ashamed of that, right? So when I have to be Mama Bear, I have to be that. When I need to be that listening ear and help my community, I want to do it. And I want to do it for the generations that we see here and every generation before. So I share my story, and I would love to come back and tell you more. But it's important to know that the one driving force for me is my Christianity wrapped up into it. It's my faith. It's my community. Is that I want to be what I didn't have growing up. I didn't have you. I didn't have you who are open to me to tell me how to navigate this. I had black women that I looked to, but they were scared to embrace me because I was young and I was attractive to people, so they didn't know how to receive me. And even here, it was once put in the Leo that I had 4 baby daddies from a black leader here. They didn't know how to receive me even with the movement. And that had nothing to do with who I was and who I was showing up to be, but they didn't know how to receive me in the fact that I had relationships across lines of difference. Then they said things, they questioned my blackness. And I've been on the streets, I've been everywhere, and if you ask anybody in Cincinnati, nobody up there would question my blackness, but my blackness got questioned right here in Louisville. And not because I did something that was deemed to be Oreo, it's because they saw white people reaching out to me and me bridging links together to make sure that we can work together across those lines. But I've always had a black thought, black ideas, and a black way to get things done. But even with that, we have to work together in union to make it happen. So it's hard. It's hard to go through that kind of public scrutiny and then come back and show up and get work done together. And even if I might not break bread with some of those women who said these bad things about me, if they came to me with something to help somebody or a project, I will show up and do what needs to be done. We won't be the level of friends, but then they may not be in my accountability circle that I talked about earlier. But I will still get that work done. So we have to put our egos to the side and our personal feelings, just like we do as mothers. We put our lives on the back burners for them. And then we have to also get to take care of ourselves and create accountability circles that help. And that's what I have. I wouldn't be here without my accountability circle, who is mixed up with a bunch of people, from professional to somebody from my old life to people who are working on faith. All those women come together, and men, like the brother Dre here, come together to help me guide myself forward, because I don't have all the answers. And nobody's above professional and personal development. So thank you for letting me share that. We can talk about anything. You can ask any questions. But I wanted to just tell you how I became who I am. This run for mayor, even if I wasn't running for mayor, I would be running to help. I would be helping other people get elected that are going to make decisions that improve our lives. But I decided to put my hat in. It's time. I'm qualified. I'm ready. And I want to get back to the basics of listening to the people and having your voices represented.